This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Hi there, listeners. I am coming to you live from my closet. I am trying to find the best acoustics in my place for y'all. With that being said, I'd like to have a little bit of a personal episode today. I'd like to update you all on what is going on in my life as a means of hopefully providing something that you can see some parallels for in your life or in a friend's life. One of the most important part of our stories is telling it to other people because you never know how it's going to affect someone. And you never know who your listeners are. That's part of the beauty of this digital landscape that we have. Obviously, there's plenty of problems with social media and technology, but I do believe that, and this is a wonderful conversation I had with Jules of the Plug podcast, my producer here, and Danny, is that podcasts give us the opportunity to connect to so many different people in a way that we just haven't had otherwise, and that's really powerful. So I started graduate school last week. I am getting a Master's of Arts in Counseling for Marriage and Family Therapy. It's about a 3-year program, and classes are at night. They're 5 to 10 p.m. And I think because of the timing of the classes, I thought, okay, no problem. I can just do this whole grad school thing on the side. I really don't know what I was thinking, because the program is very demanding. There's a lot of reading, a lot of writing required, a lot of sitting and thinking and reprocessing and taking notes and rereading, and I'm loving every bit of it. The format of the courses are very much that you're expected to have been familiarized with the material before you come to class, and then to engage in really thoughtful, intellectual, wonderful, stimulating, deep conversations. So as an audio learner and someone who loves to have conversations, this is the ideal outline for me, right? So I feel very fortunate in that. But there have been a few things that I don't think we talk about enough that were really affecting me the weeks before this started, the weeks before grad school started, and even in the first few weeks of it, and that is that I have several learning disabilities in addition to really wild ADHD. And I did an Instagram live on my story with ADHD and how I essentially self-diagnosed during COVID when I started to work my first corporate job, and everything was on Zoom and it was very scheduled and very corporate America, and I was like, whoa, I cannot do this. How do other people do this? It wasn't that I was just bored or didn't like it or didn't want to do the certain things that were required by the company. It was virtually impossible for me to get anything done. So I started looking into it, and sure enough, I received a diagnosis from a nurse practitioner after seeking out a facility that could, confirm my suspicions. And that was really nice. And along with various coping skills or organizational strategies, I began taking Adderall, and it honestly changed my life. I would not have a business without it. I would not have this podcast without it. I am so grateful for this medication and the way that stimulants can help people with ADHD. I see a lot of advertisements on social media for sort of supplement-based stimulant replacements. And there's a lot of people talking about how, they were addicted to the Adderall, or they took too much, or they felt a crash and they didn't find it useful. Oh, but now this supplement is so amazing. And not to knock any of those supplements. I'm sure they're wonderful. But I feel like it kind of feeds into the shame complex that we already have about medication. And so I wanted to just voice that it has been something incredibly helpful for me. And I refuse to feel any shame over that now. The more I talk about my ADHD, the more I find a lot of people around me have it or are suspicious that they have it. And once we can realize that we're all doing the same really crazy procrastination, practice or technique, or that we all walk into one room and completely forget what we were there for, only to walk out of the room to return where we are and then remember what it was that we were supposed to get from the other room. So it's just things like that that have really, I feel like, opened a community for me, but I had to own that. And so that being said, with the other learning disabilities, I had a 405 in high school that allowed me various accommodations, such as taking exams online as opposed to on paper. In college, I had an IEP, which is another sort of accommodation that allowed me to take notes on my computer, because with my processing, I can't listen and take all the information and write it down fast enough. So I was always falling behind in lectures before I had that. And I think I got time and a half on tests, which I never really used, but certainly did take off a lot of pressure knowing that I had that time. And I think it's really easy to feel a lot of shame over these things, no matter how brilliant one is in other arenas. So I was having a lot of anxiety, I think, before class was begun, and then even the first few weeks, with the unknown and concern of how these disabilities were going to affect me. In college, I was not diagnosed with ADHD, and I wasn't as confident as I am now. And I think it was almost like I feel so good at the things that I do now because I work really hard at them, but I hadn't been in school for so long and I didn't know what to expect. It was almost like, not that this is about ego, but I was really scared for, I guess, how poorly I might perform in grad school, and just having no idea how to prepare myself. I certainly did start having more theory-related conversations on the phone with virtually anyone who would get on the phone with me, I think, as a way to prepare. Prepare formulating arguments and referring to texts. So all of that is just to say that I know so many brilliant people who have various different learning disabilities, and we might need specific quote-unquote accommodations, but that there doesn't need to be any shame in that. Big deal. You need a little bit of extra time. Big deal. You have to take notes on your computer. You're still going to submit the best essay. You're still going to, create the best project with the most innovative idea. So I'm telling this to myself, and I'm telling this to all of you, because I think in the right way, and if we become comfortable enough with our quote-unquote disabilities, or our neurodivergence, or our neurospiciness, that it can really be a superpower. We just have to learn how to fine-tune and work with it, right? So now that I've come to the conclusion, and I'm laughing at myself as I say this, but I've come to the conclusion that grad school is indeed not a part-time endeavor. I to be totally real with you all, I went through a little bit of grieving. I was panicking and so freaked out because I was looking at my schedule and I thought there's no way Smoke and Stretch can continue at the trajectory that it was on while I take on this big of a responsibility. It's over 40 hours a week. And it just seems at this point in time that having an event every 2 weeks and creating enough social media content for it, continuing to get brand sponsorships and work with other artists in the city, it just doesn't seem feasible. I am very familiar with burnout, and I don't like how close I was feeling to it. So, as someone who's studying mental health and wellness, as someone who hosts events that are wellness centered and specifically surrounding decolonizing our practices and our beliefs, what good does it do me as a quote unquote healer to be trying to study how to heal people and be so sick trying to follow whatever capitalistic business endeavor at the same exact rate that I can't even provide out of pure joy and clean energy. And that may sound really silly or elementary, but I know when I'm tired, I don't teach the best classes. I'm not the most creative. The little things that normally would be exciting now feel like a chore because there's something else to be done because I'm just simply not resourced. And I don't want to live in that space. That's quite hypocritical for me to be trying to teach and educate and spread the word about how to take care of ourselves, and I'm simultaneously burning the stick at both ends, burning the candlestick at both ends. And I just felt like I was being eaten alive by all of these commitments. And I want to spend time with my friends, and I want to spend time with my families, and I want to spend time in the bathtub with my feet up, finding new music for a yoga class. I want to have rest, and I think that's a pretty basic human right. But I think it's also easy to get lost in the entrepreneurial sauce and forget how to take care of ourselves. So I was really upset. I was weeping and panicking, and I didn't know what to do, and I felt like I was letting everyone down. And I've just been trying to sit more and meditate more, and I thought, are people really going to be upset because you offer a Smoke and Stretch a little bit less? I'm thinking maybe once a month would be a sustainable model at this rate. And I would like to find a bigger space, currently looking at a few, so that for scalability, there can be 100 people at a time instead of just 30. And I've had some really supportive friends reminding me that it's okay to slow down, that the business is absolutely still there, that being in school right now will absolutely continue to inform my ideas, my beliefs, and will thus change and affect the event and allow it to grow in ways that I couldn't have imagined otherwise. And while all of their words are very kind and helpful, there is certainly still a little bit of sadness. I feel like I haven't been on social media very much. I had some really kind friends reach out because of it. Hey, you're quiet on socials. Everything okay? And I felt like I was having so many profound real world experiences, and maybe for the first time since COVID, to be completely honest. That might be part of the shock of all of this. That posting and engaging on social media just felt so superficial. And that's really new to me. I love content creation. I love the conversations that go on online. I've never felt so icky towards it. And I think that'll pass. I think it was more of a knowing that I couldn't continue at the same rate. So I am actively reformulating, recalibrating, redesigning. And I'm grateful for everyone's patience and kind words of support. I suppose it's okay for us to have planned seasons in our life, if you will. It's okay for the next 3 years to be a season of study for me. It's okay for it to be a gradual growth for the business. It's okay to not be doing the absolute most all the time. But that takes a lot of confidence, and that takes a lot of ability to sit soundly with oneself and feel good about themselves. And I think that's something that we're all always working on.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.
Another observation that I have made while I've been in grad school is that I have really missed my role as a student. This is a common experience among teachers. They begin teaching so much and they don't have an equal amount of opportunities where they are students. And not only do I not believe that that is the most effective way for us as teachers to exist, I think it's actually vital and really important that we focus on being really intentional as students, given we are teachers. It's really common in my yoga classes, if I have dance teachers or other yoga teachers, talk about how good it felt to be a student. And I've totally experienced that when I go take a class. But I don't think I've been a student for a while since college in such an academic sense. And I suppose I'm realizing how much I love education. This is part of why I create content, because I'm sick of a lot of things being kept behind the gate. There's a lot of gatekeepers within academia, and there are certain things that shouldn't be related to privilege. Knowledge shouldn't be related to privilege, but we have these academic databases that quite literally do not allow you in unless you are affiliated with an academic institution, and that's wild to me. So as soon as I got that ID number, I was deep in those databases. I would like to extend an opportunity to hear from you all at this moment, in that given I do have that access to various databases, I would love to hear of any specific topics or themes or research that you all would like to learn about, that you feel like maybe you've hit a plateau on research, or you're just not well versed in what the status quo is surrounding said theory. It would be an absolute pleasure for me to hear from you all and then conduct some research and be able to give you the synopsis of various articles and bring them into some conversations here. So that's one. I know there's a lot of artists on this podcast. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this podcast. There's a lot of really important people. And part of what makes what we do so important is that it comes from inspiration and it comes from passion. I began Smoke and Stretch because I was getting my yoga training during the most stressful time of my life. COVID, George Floyd, my mother was very ill, recent breakup. 2020 was not exactly fun for me, but yoga gave me this ability. I don't even want to say escape, because I was very in all of it, but this ability to exist all the while. And so then I started either taking an edible or smoking a little bit before I did my yoga flows, and these would turn into 3 to 4 hour sessions of thinking, stretching, smoking. There was always some colored lights involved. There was always good music. I loved making playlists for it. So I've been doing smoke and stretch theoretically by myself for quite some time, and that was how the event was born. And then when I started hosting the event, I was still so good at my self-care practices that I was doing it virtually every night or every day, and then hosting an event, once a month over the summers, I think I did. And it was amazing. And every time I came to the event, I had so much to offer. I felt this newness, and that, the people were curious. There was my friends. There was room for expansion, but that I was inspired, and I had yogic teachings to offer because I was, deep in the reading and thinking and meditating on different sutras. But as time went on, and I think this happens with a lot of business owners, is the things that originally fueled and designed their business in a way began to flip-flop, in that the business activity or the event is happening much more frequently than the original practice itself that inspired that event. And so I was looking around, and I was hosting these events a little bit more frequently than I was even taking the time to do them for me. And that's a red flag. I know better. I know anyone who's listening, who's nodding their head thinking about a time in which they did this with something in their life, they know better. But I still don't think we are open about it enough. So I invite us all to consider and remember this idea that, like, all of it is part of the process. Like, all of the rest, all of the walks, all of the journaling, all of the meditation, all of the baths, all of the phone conversations with friends, all of the, shows that you go see, all of the media you consume, the music you listen to, the podcast you stream, all of this is part of your process. And so it's really easy for us to think, oh, I don't have time to lay around and watch blah, blah, blah. But it is so essential for us to rest, to ensure that we are inspired and that we are resourced. I beg of you, and I beg myself, not to continue to fall into that trap anymore. So as challenging and honestly heartbreaking, and I'm gonna get over it, but it's still fresh. As heartbreaking as it is to decrease the frequency in which I'm hosting these events, I am really trying to stand strong in my decision and comfort myself with the hobbies that I can engage in as a result of increased free time, as, less anxiety exists in my life, as more inspiration will come. It's a transition, but it's welcome. And I spoke with a friend, and he offered the idea of tweaking my content a bit in order to just take one on a journey with me and share some things that I learned that I think you all would find useful or interesting, and just have things a little more raw and uncut and less planned, and just to kind of document things real vlogger style. I think social media is changing for sure. There's an increased demand for less polished, we'll say, less scripted content. And so maybe this is the perfect thing. I think I had some concerns of ever documenting anything like this because I didn't want it to come off self-centered, like, oh, I have all the answers or I know everything. That's why I do a lot of infographics. That's why I like to share other people's content. I never wanted to be an existence online where it appears that I think I have everything figured out. And even if the content creator themselves isn't trying to, advertise or promote that image, I think because we are just seeing the highlight reels of people's lives online, it's easy for us to make that assumption. So if any of you had made that assumption about me, I'm happy to be the bearer of bad news right here and right now that I have far from having it figured out. But I am very grateful for this opportunity to connect with you all and have conversation about it, because it makes me feel very supported, and it makes me feel very happy and overwhelmed with gratitude, frankly, when I get messages from you all saying that, you really needed this week, or you've been thinking about this forever but couldn't put words to it. Like, this is truly the only reason that I continue to create, is for this engagement and this community that it's gifted me. So thank you, every one of you, for listening as this podcast has continued to grow. This is a shift, but I suppose it doesn't need to be negative. Maybe it'll be better for y'all. Maybe it'll be more exciting. It'll be less random things that I'm talking about. Who knows? But I just wanted to extend some gratitude towards everyone. So I'll close this episode with the idea of synergy and the idea or the concept that things in our life can be synergistic by way of us making some fine-tunements along the way. So here's to fine-tuning content, fine-tuning my days and ways that my time is spent, fine-tuning the way and the frequency in which events are offered, and hopefully fine-tuning my relationship with you all. Thank you so much. I'm wishing you all a beautiful week full of rest, intentionality. Please remember, we are still in winter. It's okay to still be moving slow. Spring is around the corner. I'm cleaning like a crazy lady. I can feel it. Con todo de mi corazón, besitos y abrazos. With all of my heart, lots of hugs and kisses to you. Y como siempre, like always, besos.